At the class reunion, my ex-girlfriend looked at the ring on my ring finger and sneered. Bring your wife along when you have the time, so I can see what type you like. I replied, she's abroad. Later, she cornered me. I heard you found a replacement for me. The real deal is back. When are you getting divorced? And then, she hugged me and cried with red eyes. You Joe, why can't you just comfort me? Chapter 1. At the class reunion at the age of 30, Jang stood out among a group of overweight people. Even though she was sitting in the farthest corner from me, I still noticed her at first glance. In that moment when our eyes met, I felt an inexplicable panic in my heart. I looked at her face, no longer youthful and naive, both unfamiliar and familiar, as if it belonged to a different world. 8 years had passed, and we met again. Everything caught me off guard. She looked at the ring on my ring finger and smiled lightly. Married? I lowered my gaze, speechless, while our classmates teased. Our class only has you, Miss Jang, as the remaining single noble. But we heard you're going to marry a son of some leader. Congratulations in advance. After a round of mingling and toasting, someone in the crowd said, You Joe, if you two hadn't broken up back then, you would be the wealthy son-in-law now. Yeah, don't you regret it? After a moment of silence, everyone looked at me. I held back the bitterness, pretended to be indifferent, and smiled. We were young and foolish back then, it was just a fling. Jang gently swayed her wine glass, her eyes passing over me, and a playful smile curled at the corner of her mouth. Bring your wife along when you have the time, so I can see what type you like. She mocked, and I endured the embarrassment, but didn't know how to respond. After all, it was me who ended the relationship back then, with the reason being, you're not the type I like. Years of separation, even in my dreams, she rarely appeared. I thought that Jang and I were destined to be that way in this lifetime. The others had expressions of watching a spectacle. When did you get married, you Joe? Why didn't anyone get notified? I replied nonchalantly, after graduation. Why haven't we seen your wife on social media? Is she so ugly and unattractive that you can't show her off? I clenched my fist, nails digging into my flesh, feeling a slight pain, and took a deep breath. She's abroad. Everyone took on a gleeful bystander attitude. Everyone knew that our breakup with Jang back then was quite scandalous. She waited outside my dormitory all night, begging for reconciliation, but I heartlessly refused to see her. And now, she had returned triumphantly, silently slapping everyone's face, so naturally, they all wanted to add fuel to the fire. I heard that Jang acquired the company where you Joe works. From now on, you'll be his boss, so you better perform well. The crowd erupted in excitement. Manager you, let's toast to General Jang. Amidst the commotion, I stood up, filled my glass, raised it to my lips, and drank it all in one go. The alcohol slightly went to my head, and my eyes turned red. General Jang, please take care of me in the future. Jang smiled ambiguously. Naturally, after all, manager you and I have such a deep personal connection. She emphasized the last word, and as her enigmatic gaze met mine, my heart tightened suddenly. Excuse me, I need to go to the restroom. Chapter 2. I made an excuse and slipped out of the private room. The cold water from the restroom faucet cooled my hands as I looked up and stared at my 30-year-old self in the mirror. Look at you Joe, still looking like a young guy in his 20s, with that physique and face. No wonder he had Jang so infatuated back then. From the neighboring restroom, I heard a few chuckles. PFFT, who knows if he really got married? At 30, he doesn't even have a child, and his wife has never been shown off on social media. I bet he's just being kept as a sugar baby by some rich woman. I've seen it myself. He drives an Audi A6 and supposedly bought a house in the city. How can a poor guy like him afford all that? Well, that rich woman must not be that powerful if she ended up with him. If she had chosen Jang back then, she would have gone from a nobody to successful. Come on. Given his background, he's actually done quite well for himself. Do you really think the Jang family would have looked at him? Yeah, true. I wonder how they ended up together back then. And he's the one who dumped Jang. I bet he's regretting it now. I forced a bitter smile and quietly left the restroom. Regret? I asked myself. No regrets, I guess. People always have to say goodbye to things they can't hold on to. I always knew that Jang Wan would achieve great success because she has always been a shining presence. Whether it was 10 years ago or 10 years later, she would live a life envied by everyone. At 18, she was the beautiful school flower from a well-off family. At 30, she was a returning honors student with a PhD. While others were burning the midnight oil studying for the college entrance exam, her parents had already paved the way for her to attend prestigious foreign universities. When I was proudly buying a small house in the crowded city, earning a modest salary of 500,000 a year, she had already become a young entrepreneur with a net worth of over 100 million yuan, owning multiple luxury villas. If 10 years ago, Jang Wan was my ideal in this world. Now, it's just wishful thinking. I never thought there would be another chance to see her again, as she had been abroad all these years and never attended any class reunions. And I never expected that the daughter of the company's chairman who acquired our company would be Jang Wan. My ex-girlfriend had now become my boss. I thought about my monthly mortgage, car loan, and bills, and forcefully suppressed the urge to write a resignation letter. Oh well, I'll take it one step at a time. It has been 8 years since we broke up, maybe she doesn't care anymore. I opened my phone and booked a ride-hailing service. Stepping out of the door, the cold winter wind blew, sending a piercing chill to my forehead. I stomped my feet and wrapped my coat tightly around me. But the ride-hailing service didn't receive any orders, until a blue Rolls-Royce Phantom slowly stopped at the door. The driver got out and opened the back door, respectfully calling out, "General Jang." Only then did I see Jang Wan walking towards me, wearing a high-end dress that perfectly outlined her exquisite figure, exuding an air of nobility. She glanced at me, seemingly indifferent, then looked at her watch and spoke in a flat tone. "Let me take you back. This place is too remote." I quickly declined, "Thank you, but it's not necessary." "Why? Afraid I can't forget the past? You Joe, it's been 8 years. Do you really think I would stoop so low as to be a third party to a married man in his 30s for the sake of love?" A faint smile appeared at the corner of her lips, a coldness in her eyes. "Give me a report on the company's situation during the ride." Chapter 3. It would seem too affected if I tried to avoid it any further, so I reluctantly got into the car. "General Jang, I am the manager of Project Department 2. Currently, the project department consists of 3 teams, and we plan to add a new team after the new year. The company is mainly managed by General Feng." Jang Wan responded indifferently. "The team in Department 2 was established 3 years ago and is currently ranked first in performance. We will continue to strive for excellence next year." She still didn't show much reaction. Tomorrow, I will send you a detailed work summary," I added in a muffled voice. Jang Wan didn't respond. After a long silence, she suddenly spoke up. "The Health and Culture Festival this year, was it planned by you?" Another long silence. "I am planning to make some personnel adjustments in the company. What do you think as a manager?" The company being acquired by a listed group naturally added a layer of glitter. But it also meant that some were happy while others worried. The happy ones saw the increased opportunities for career development, while the worried ones heard rumors about potential layoffs. The decisions made by leadership are naturally well considered and beneficial for the company's development. As employees, we should just cooperate and execute them well. I could only answer with a forced smile. Her eyes darkened slightly, and she suddenly laughed absent-mindedly. Well, you've changed. Even your way of speaking has become smooth." Suppressing my inner emotions, I calmly replied, "People grow, General Jang. You have also become more mature." "Hey." She turned her head, squinting her eyes, and let out a low laughter, breaking the stifling atmosphere. It seemed like she was laughing at the changes I had gone through over the years. Yes, I have changed a lot. I've learned to hold my head up high, learned to radiate confidence. I've learned to be accommodating, as well as worldly and smooth. I am no longer insecure, no longer poor. But Jang Wan's inexplicable smile instantly reminded me of those humble and dusty years. Chapter 4. I have never seen my biological mother. It is said that she gave birth to me and then ran away because our family was too poor. My father didn't want me either, so he just abandoned me to my grandmother and went off to fool around with other women. Later on, he accumulated a lot of debt, got caught while trying to rob someone, and ended up in prison. Over the years, it was my grandmother who raised me by collecting and selling scrap materials. A person like me, born in the mud and raised in the mud. But Jang Wan is different, she's like a cloud in the sky. There shouldn't be any connection between us, like the difference between heaven and earth. The first time I met Jang Wan, I was 16 years old. My grandmother and I were picking up trash near her villa. I was wearing worn-out shoes and a loose school uniform, timidly following behind her. Jang Wan's mother saw our pitiful state and shouted from the yard. "Jang Wan, do we still have any useless cardboard boxes and plastic bottles at home? Bring them down quickly." At that time, she was wearing a white dress, her hair damp, running over like the protagonist in a comic book. She handed me a few cardboard boxes, and I nervously took them, lowering my head. After seeing my worn-out shoes and washed-out school uniform, my face turned red with embarrassment. "Thank you." "Wait, there's more, let me get them for you." She suddenly ran off again. It seemed like Jang Wan's mother noticed my embarrassment, and she kindly stroked my hair. "Young man, study hard, and your life will get better and better." In an instant, my eyes welled up with tears, but Jang Wan quickly returned, carrying a bunch of cardboard boxes and bottles. At that time, I was deeply moved and also felt ashamed. From that moment, I secretly vowed to study hard and change my life. I dreamed that perhaps when I turned 30, I could also live in such a big house. But reality always makes you realize how naive and foolish you were back then. Especially now, sitting in Jang Wan's luxury car, looking up at the sparkling blue sky. I understand even more that no matter how fast a train runs, it can never catch up to the speed of an airplane. Both of us are 30 years old, but I drive an Audi A6 while others drive a Rolls-Royce. I wear a Longines watch, while others wear Patek Philippe. When I was 18, I naively believed that all roads lead to Rome. Little did I know that some people are born in Rome. Chapter 5. Mr. Yu, you have arrived at your home. The driver's reminder brings me back to reality. Thank you, Miss Jang. It's getting late, so I won't invite you up. I put on a professional smile and politely thank her. Manager Yu, seems like your upbringing was quite strict. Jang Wan smirks and teases me. I'm at a loss for words, unsure of how to respond. I simply reply softly. Goodbye, Miss Jang. As I open the car door, a gust of cold wind sneaks in. You Joe, have you been doing well all these years? Jang Wan's cold voice, accompanied by the winter breeze, reaches my ears. For some reason, the question "have you been doing well" almost breaks through the emotional barrier I've held all day. Suppressing the warmth in my eyes, I calmly reply. I've been doing well. Taking a deep breath, I step out of the car as I push the door open completely. In that moment of closing the door, our gazes meet, forming a connection. I look at her face, and my heart skips a beat. Is she treating you well? Jang Wan speaks in a hoarse voice. She's treating me well. That's good. Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I almost stumble in my haste to leave. But then, I hear her voice from behind. You Joe, why don't you ask me how I've been doing all these years? Suppressing the soreness in my ankle, I slowly turn around, meeting Jang Wan's face under the night sky. It's a face that has appeared countless times in my dreams. Suddenly, a phrase comes to mind, a millennium in one glance. Jang Wan, then. Have you been doing well all these years? She smiles faintly, backlit by the light. It's been both good and not so good. Her deep gaze meets mine, and a slight curve appears at the corner of her mouth. I'm getting married. Will you bless me? Of course. I wish you a happy marriage, until old age. I pretend to be indifferent, forcing a smile. Jang Wan, I wish for both of us to have a good ending. A layer of mist clouds my vision, and Jang Wan's silhouette, against the light, becomes increasingly blurred. In that moment of turning away, I can no longer hold back my emotions. It has been 8 years, and I thought I had moved on, so why does my heart still ache like this? If I had known it would be so heart-wrenching, we should have never crossed paths. That brief companionship, was it a reward or a punishment? The love that ended abruptly in our youth. I liked it very much, but it was short-lived, and also filled with regret. Chapter 6. In the third year of high school, a new classmate transferred to our class. She stood on the podium to introduce herself, and many boys whispered about how beautiful she was. I secretly glanced up at her and noticed that she seemed taller than 2 years ago. The teacher asked her where she wanted to sit, and she said she wanted to sit next to a studious and quiet classmate. And so, she became my desk mate. There was no excitement or joy, only nervousness, embarrassment, and even humiliation. In that moment, I was afraid that she would recognize me as the boy who used to pick up garbage outside her villa. Hi. My name is Jang. Nice to meet you, desk mate. I felt embarrassed and lowered my head. Hello. I'm Yu Joe. Hello, Yu Joe. Since then, she always liked to talk to me. Yu Joe, what are your hobbies? Yu Joe, what do you like to eat? Yu Joe, do you have any favorite songs? Yu Joe, how come you're so good at studying? Most of the time, she would talk non-stop while I remained silent. Jang Wan had a good personality, was polite to everyone, and was extremely likable. She became the object of many boys' crushes and secret admirations in our class. Many of them would ask me to pass love letters to her. As someone who was introverted and lacked confidence, I had to mentally prepare myself for a long time before daring to give her those letters, as if I was writing them for myself. Jang Wan, this is a letter from Times. But she would say, but I already like someone. Hey, when will the person I like ever write me a love letter? She sighed to herself and then turned to look at me. Yu Joe, if you were to write a love letter to someone you like, what would you write? My face instantly turned red, and in the end, I softly reminded her. Jang Wan. We shouldn't have early relationships in high school. She burst into laughter. Then let's wait until after graduation. She laughed so brightly, unable to resist teasing me. Yu Joe, why are you blushing? Do you have someone you like? I pretended to focus on my book, but my heart was already in a state of panic. No, I don't. That night, before going to bed, I pondered for a long time on that question. If I were to confess to the person I liked, what would I write in the love letter? I thought of shootings to the oak tree. If I love you, I will never be like the clinging morning glory, using your tall branches to show off myself. If I love you, I will never be like the infatuated bird, repeating monotonous songs in the green shade. I must be a kapok tree by your side, standing together with you as a tree. You have your bronze branches and iron trunk, like a knife, a sword, and even a spear. I have my red, full flowers, like heavy sighs, yet also like a brave torch. What I wanted was a love that stood side by side, independent yet deeply affectionate. Chapter 7. But back then, I was trapped in the quagmire of my dysfunctional family, feeling too insignificant. Poverty, timidity, and low self-esteem made it impossible for me to hold my head up high. I wore a pair of discounted canvas shoes that cost 25 yuan for 2 years. The shoes were size 42, while my feet were size 43. When they started to come apart, I would use glue to stick them back together. When the shoe uppers turned yellow, I would secretly use a white chalk to cover them up. Every time I passed by a brand new pair of sneakers in the mall, I would sneak a glance, over and over again. Those shoes cost 88 yuan. They weren't a famous brand, but they were new and would fit perfectly, making running much easier. But 88 yuan required my grandmother to collect recyclables for a long time. Her legs were not in good condition, and every time I saw her walking while supporting her waist, I would suppress my material desires. Until that pair of shoes was bought by a mother for her child. She gently smiled as she helped her child put on the new shoes, asking if they felt tight or not. I wondered if my own mother would treat me like that if I had one. Unfortunately, I had never seen her. During physical education class, the teacher asked everyone to wear sports shoes, but I didn't have any. He looked displeased when he saw my shoes. Didn't I tell you all to wear sports shoes? Yu Joe, how are you going to run in those shoes? Under the gaze of everyone, my head couldn't possibly sink any lower. I had to make up an excuse, saying that I had forgotten. One day after school, Jang Wan suddenly jumped out from behind me and shouted loudly. Yu Joe, happy birthday. She smiled, revealing her white teeth. Her ponytail swayed, and in the light of the setting sun, it gleamed with a golden hue. Surprised or not? Unexpected, right? I secretly looked at your ID card, so I knew it was your birthday today. I was shocked for a moment, not knowing how to react. Here. Birthday gift. She pulled out a tote bag from behind and stuffed it into my hands. Don't dislike it. It's a buy one, get one free deal for free shoes. She lifted her foot, wearing a brand new pair of white sneakers. I opened the box, and inside was a pair of the same style in black. That brand of shoes was very expensive, only sold in high-end malls. Thank you, but Jang Wan, I can't accept this. Why? Do you think it's because they're free? She asked. No. It's not that. They're too expensive, I really can't accept. I panicked, explaining in a low voice. It really didn't cost any money, look. She took out the receipt and pointed to the 0 yuan price tag, showing it to me. I'm sorry. I really can't accept it. I kept pushing back, and she started to get a little impatient. You Joe, we've been desk mates for so long, don't you consider me a friend? No. It's not like that. I hurriedly explained. She softened her tone. These shoes aren't just a gift, they're my initiation gift. I need to take the TOEFL exam, but my English is terrible. If I fail, my mom will scold me to death. Help me, please. Seeing me silent and looking down, she started circling around me. Please, you Joe, tutoring outside costs 100 yuan per hour. I'm taking advantage of you. I didn't know how to handle it. She interrupted me directly. All right, it's settled then. That day, she gently stroked my hair, as if comforting and encouraging me. She said to me, you Joe, things will get better. I remembered 2 years ago, in front of her mom's villa, Jang Wan's mom did the same, stroking my head and saying to me, young man, study hard. Life will get better. They were both such gentle people, seeing through my predicament, yet still taking care of my fragile self-esteem. That day, Jang Wan stood under the blooming evening sunset, looking particularly beautiful against the light. I walked on the road with my backpack, and she faced me, walking backward. You Joe, in the future, you should give me a pair of glass slippers. Under the crimson evening sunset, Jang Wan seemed to radiate light. She was a princess in glass slippers, and I was not a prince. Chapter 8. Since then, I would give Jang Wan an hour of English tutoring every day after school. She had good grades and a sharp mind, quickly grasping many concepts. It was then that I learned that many children from wealthy families would study abroad, while others were struggling through the fierce competition of the National College Entrance Exam. Her parents had already paved the way for her to attend prestigious foreign universities. It was said that the annual tuition fees amounted to several 100,000 yuan. For me, it was like astronomical figures. Because that year, I almost dropped out of school due to lacking 1,200 yuan. In my senior year, there was a sudden increase of 2,000 yuan in tuition fees, and my family could only come up with 800 yuan. My grandmother couldn't sleep all night, worried about the remaining money. Summoning all my courage, I asked my homeroom teacher if I could delay the payment, explaining that my family was extremely poor. Seeing my difficult situation, my homeroom teacher initiated a fundraising campaign within the class. That year, my classmates contributed their pocket money, ranging from 10 yuan, 20 yuan, to 50 yuan. They looked at me with sympathetic eyes as I stood on the podium, bowing to each and every one of them in gratitude. The feeling of my shattered self-esteem lying on the ground was truly indescribable. Finally, Jang Wan angrily pulled me down from the stage, domineeringly returning all the donated money, and even covering the remaining tuition for me. You Joe, why didn't you tell me that you needed money? She cornered me, staring at me with anger. I didn't know how to say it. I didn't want your pity or to owe you anything. I hoped that we would be equals. But I didn't know how to express it, so in the end, I just muttered, I will repay you the money as soon as possible. Thank you, Jang Wan. I deeply bowed to her. During that winter vacation, I found a job in a fishing tackle factory in a suburban county, where my task was to paint fishing rods. Because the paint fumes were too strong, and it was said that long-term exposure could lead to lung cancer, many people avoided this job. However, for those who were forced by circumstances, they would trade their lives for that hard-earned money, earning 80 yuan a day. After that winter vacation, I finally repaid the money to Jang Wan. Her expression was somewhat cold. You Joe, are you really so reluctant to owe me? I had prepared many words, never imagining that the person who had once written a perfect essay would run out of words. But at that moment, 1,000 words condensed into just one sentence. Yes. Since that incident, there were various discussions within the class. Many people said that Jang Wan liked me, while others said she pitied me. I felt a little panicked and even scared. If you were to ask me if I like Jang Wan, I can only say that I dare not think about it, let alone like her. I knew deep down that there was a world of difference between us, and there would never be a future. I began to deliberately distance myself from her, and it seemed like she was suppressing her anger. Until one day, a boy sitting behind me threw a coin at me with extreme contempt in his tone. "Take it, it's your reward." That boy liked Jang Wan and couldn't stand seeing her around me every day. Seeing me angry, he didn't care and said, "Don't get mad, it was just a joke." Jang Wan's anger finally erupted at that moment. "Do you know him well? Are you joking with him?" She took out all the money from her wallet and threw it in the boy's face, imitating his tone. "Don't get mad, it was just a joke." That was the first time I saw Jang Wan lose her temper, a furious storm. In the end, both of them were called by their parents. Chapter 9. It was on that day that Jang Wan's mother found me, still beautiful and gentle. "You're my daughter's classmate, right?" Recently, Jang Wan suddenly insisted on studying at a domestic university. Do you know why? I could only shake my head silently. Love should be about mutual growth, not giving up. Young man, please advise her to consider her future. Later, after hesitating for a long time, I gathered my courage and took the initiative to approach Jang Wan. "Jang Wan, go study abroad for university." She was somewhat surprised, and also a bit disappointed. She asked me, "You Joe, do you really want me to go?" Lowering my head, after much hesitation, I softly spoke. You can. Go and see the world for me." Countless thoughts filled my mind, but only a few words came out. I will also work hard. I wanted to become a kapok tree next to an oak tree, not to be looked down upon just because I was poor. We would each shine in our own way, and perhaps, there would be a day when we would meet at the peak. Okay, I promise you. But we should still be like before, you can't avoid me anymore. All right. She raised her hand and gently touched my head, saying to me, "You Joe, everything will be all right." Chapter 10. Since then, it seems like my relationship with Jang Wan has become closer. She enjoys chatting with me, even though most of the time she does the talking and I do the listening. Occasionally, I would accidentally meet her unabashed gaze and instinctively lower my head to avoid it. She would lightly chuckle, and I would blush and remind her, "Pay attention to the class, Jang Wan." Being too close, our awkward moments would always collide. She has a carefree personality, unaware when she stains her pants during her period. After school, I quickly took off my own jacket and tied it around her waist. When she realized it, she became shy and embarrassed. Blushing, I bought sanitary pads from the convenience store, saying, "There are so many brands, all looking different. I don't know which one you use." I scratched my head, embarrassed to explain. Blushing, she accepted them. I heard that girls need to drink something warm during their period, so I bought her a cup of milk tea. I handed her the milk tea, which was still endorsed by J. Cho at that time. Blushing, she held the milk tea and drank it with a satisfied expression on her face. Then she tilted her head and asked me, "You Joe, what does J. Cho's line 'You are my ulame' mean?" She looked straight at me as I softly said that I didn't know. She teased me, saying, "The top student who scored 135 in Chinese doesn't even know this?" I remained silent, but I naturally knew the meaning. Because behind the sweet advertisement slogan, there was another line. "So, I am milk tea? That means I can hold you in the palm of my hand." Jang Wan stood under the sunset, tilting her head to ask me, "You Joe, do you know which J. Cho song I like the most?" She looked into my eyes and slowly said, "Once upon a time, there was someone who loved you for a long time." I had been walking alone in the gloom all along, but in that moment, I suddenly saw my sunny day. "Is it beautiful?" she asked me. I replied, "It's very beautiful." Jang Wan waved her hand dismissively and proudly said, "Today, I'm just playing around. If I have the chance, I'll show you my true talent." Chapter 11. The countdown to the college entrance examination is getting shorter, and the moment of separation is also getting closer. At the graduation party, Jang Wan wore a formal dress, played the piano, and sang Clear Day again. Once upon a time, there was someone who loved you for a long time. But unfortunately, the wind gradually blew the distance far away. Finally, we could love each other for one more day. But at the end of the story, it seems like you still said goodbye. The end of the story is goodbye, but some goodbyes can be said with a smile. The applause and screams from the audience kept coming, and I sat quietly while Jang Wan turned to look at the audience. Our eyes met with an unspoken understanding, and she raised the corners of her mouth and smiled. I remained composed, but my heart was already in turmoil. Years later, I realized that the feeling she had when she looked at me in that moment was called heart fluttering. That summer, on the back of Jang Wan's English textbook, I wrote the poem to the oak tree. She helped me apply for a QQ account, and the password was Dwise. She said she was afraid I would forget her, so she wanted her name and birthday to be part of my password. Later on, many of my accounts used this password, and she changed her account to the same one. We kept this unspoken secret between us. On the day of graduation, I didn't attend the gathering. Because of the AA system, each person had to pay 100 yuan, and I couldn't bear to spend it. When Jang Wan found me, I had just finished work at the electronics factory. There was no other choice, the tuition fees were too expensive, and I had to work to earn money. She said she would be leaving in a few days. I remained silent for a long time and wished her a safe journey. With a helpless smile, she said, "You Joe, don't you know that you can wish someone a safe journey when they take a flight? Right? I'm sorry, I've never been on a plane." She smiled and patted my head. "It's okay, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. You're so smart, you'll definitely become a millionaire." She always carefully protected my self-esteem. I took out a raccoon pendant from my pocket, which I had been keeping for days. She liked raccoon, and every night, I would set aside some time to make it little by little until it was finally finished. But I never had the courage to give it to her. It was cheap and ordinary. "I made this for you. Don't dislike it." "You made it yourself?" Jang Wan was momentarily shocked. I nodded shyly. "This is amazing. It's truly one of a kind in the whole world. I will cherish it." Actually, I never told Jang Wan that the raccoon pendant was a pair, and the other one was with me. Finally, Jang Wan opened her arms and said to me, "Give me a hug, you Joe." As I smelled the scent of sunshine on her, I thought of the song Clear Day. She hugged me and whispered in my ear, "You Joe, everything will be all right." Later on, we went our separate ways into our own worlds. We were at opposite ends of the earth, but we were both doing well. Chapter 12. I think it would be nice if the story ended here. A liking that goes beyond friendship but is not yet expressed as love. The most intimate thing we've done is just a hug before parting. No hysterics or finality afterwards, just sweet memories. When I turn 30, if I meet Jang Wan again and she tells me she's getting married, I might happily give her a big red envelope and say, "Jang Wan, I wish you a happy marriage. Thank you for taking care of me back then. I have a little money now, so here's a big red envelope for you." Maybe I'll even make a joke. "Old classmate, remember I used to have a crush on you." Instead of pretending to be happy and wishing her a lifetime of happiness as I do now. But deep down, I'm already unable to speak through my tears. After crying, I silently wipe away my tears and tell myself, "It's okay, go to bed early tonight, and everything will be better when I wake up tomorrow." Put on the mask, step out of the elevator, and go to the house people call home. "Why are you coming back so late? Do you know that your old man has been waiting for you for hours?" Sitting at the doorstep is a person, my biological father. A year ago, the police contacted me and said that my father had been released from prison. I've only seen him a few times in my life. When I was young, neighbors said my mom abandoned me because our family was poor. My dad was always out, only coming home a few times for Chinese New Year. Debt collectors came to our doorstep, and he stole the money my grandma saved for my education and even insulted me as a burden. Later, because of armed robbery and intentional harm, he was sentenced to 15 years. I thought that 15 years in prison would change him. But some people are just inherently evil and can never change. The never-ending harassment, even if I call the police, they can't do anything. After all, he's my father, and I have an obligation to support him. I recently found your stepmother. She said she wants 300,000 yuan for your younger brother to recognize me. Give me 300,000 yuan. He stands at the door like a scoundrel. Why should I give you money? 300,000 yuan? Have you ever spent 3 yuan on me? Because I'm your real father, because you carry my last name. If it wasn't for your mother supporting you in school, would you be doing so well now? I'm getting old, and I need a son to take care of me in my old age. Give me the money, and I won't bother you anymore. I don't have money, and even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. Fine, since I have no face, if you're not ashamed, I'll stay here and let the whole neighborhood see what an unfilial child you are. The constant harassment, like an annoying bug that can't be shaken off. This chaotic life sometimes drives me crazy. I put on my earphones, stroke Snowball's soft white fur, and feel the vibration of its purring. Snowball is a stray cat I found 6 years ago, a white-silver gradient. At that time, it was covered in skin diseases and limped, making feeble cries. On the evening of Chinese New Year's Day, it was shivering from the cold. You're also wondering, how about we be together so that neither of us will be unwanted anymore? I took care of its illness for a long time, and finally, it recovered. Over the years, it has grown rounder, but its leg still limps. Every day when I come home from work, no matter how late it is, Snowball greets me with its limping meows. When I sleep, I listen to its purring. No matter how many hardships I've faced during the day, I feel healed. Over the years, it has accompanied me from rented houses to our new home, from cheap cat food to imported cans. We have been living our lives step by step. Chapter 13. A new leader brings 3 fires, and when Jang first arrived at the company, she immediately began a bold personnel reform. The first to suffer were some idle positions in the logistics department, and overnight, many people lost their jobs. Everyone became worried about their own situation, but it also became the main topic of office gossip. Hey, the new arrival Jang is really English, new leader, new changes. As soon as Jang joined the company, she began a bold personnel reform. The first casualties were some positions in the logistics department, and overnight, many people lost their jobs. Everyone was concerned about their own situation, but it also became the main topic of office gossip. Hey, the new manager Jang is really beautiful, a perfect rich beauty. Forget it, didn't you see the recent financial news interview with Director Jang? She's getting married. Hey, I remember in a previous interview, Jang mentioned that she likes tall and slim, introverted guys. Enough, let's go to the gym and lose weight after work. A colleague suddenly interjected, why do I feel like I've seen Director Jang before? Everyone laughed and teased him, she's been abroad all this time, you must have dreamt it. No. I really feel like I've seen her before. I rubbed my head and tapped the table, all right, everyone, let's get back to work. He looked at me and suddenly slammed the table, I remember now. Yujo's wife. I never forget a beautiful woman. I've seen Yujo's wife's photo before, and she looks exactly like Director Jang. But Yujo's wife has a pure and innocent look, while Director Jang is a stunning mature beauty. Yujo, is your wife Director Jiang's long-lost sister? Everyone suddenly realized, that seems possible. Manager, can you show us a photo of your wife? Let's see if she's Director Jiang's long-lost sister. I panicked for a moment, I changed my phone, I don't have it on this one. When is your wife coming back to the country? I made up an excuse and escaped from the office. Staring at the ring on my ring finger, I got lost in thought. The truth is, I don't actually have a significant other. I bought the ring myself. I claim to be married to avoid all the well-intentioned matchmaking and relentless advances. In the workplace, I often have to deal with drinking culture and receive various ambiguous signals. So I decided to claim that I was already married, to reduce the trouble. After all, I won't enter into marriage in this lifetime. My colleagues were always curious and inquired, so I lied and said my partner is abroad. They always clamored to see photos, but at that time, my phone only had Jang Wan's photos. That's good, she now has someone she likes too. A poor guy like me is ultimately not worthy of her. That guy must be excellent. Chapter 14. Manager, you, come to the front desk quickly. There's someone claiming to be your father causing a scene at the company front desk. The HR manager sounded extremely anxious over the phone. I hung up the phone and hurriedly ran to the front desk. It was crowded with onlookers, many of whom were taking photos and videos with their phones. Yudai, like an angry woman, sat on the ground, crying hysterically. My son, Yujo, I worked hard to support his education, and now that he's successful, he ignores his own father. Everyone, please reason with him. He looks so well dressed every day, enjoying the good life, but he doesn't want to give a single penny to his own father. Is this the kind of child he is? Whispers began to circulate among the crowd. I never expected Manager Yu to be like this. He seemed good on the surface, but I never thought he would neglect his own father. Yes, you can't judge a book by its cover. Someone who doesn't even respect their parents, how good can their character be? Feng, the department leader, saw me and hastily greeted me. "You Joe, you finally came. Take a look at what's happening. How could your father cause a scene at the company like this? This is causing a lot of trouble. Resolve it quickly." The people who were spectating turned their attention to me. Yu Dai saw this and raised his voice even louder. "For you Joe, this unfilial child, to ignore his father and let his colleagues and leaders see how heartless he is." I gritted my teeth, my fingers trembling. Faced with his crazed appearance, I didn't understand why he was treating me this way. "Hey! I didn't know that you Joe still had a father." Jang Wan's voice reverberated, her gaze cold as ice as she looked down on Yu Dai. Who are you?" "I am her superior, tell me if you have any issues." Jang Wan gestured to her secretary, "Take him to the office and call the legal department." She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Don't go, wait outside." I didn't know what Jang Wan said to Yu Dai, but I always felt that someone like him, who was so wicked and couldn't get money, wouldn't just give up easily. "Does he want money? I can transfer the money to you, General Manager Jang." In the CEO's office, I stood on the soft carpet, but my face burned with embarrassment. "It's already been resolved." Jang Wan didn't even lift her head. "Thank you, General Manager Jang." I lowered my eyes and awkwardly spoke. "Thank you? How does Manager Yu plan to thank me? With what?" Jang Wan looked up, smiling nonchalantly as she examined me. I was speechless. Indeed, what could I thank her with? "Well, let's do this. I'll entrust my wedding planning to Manager Yu. I hope you won't disappoint me." But I have no experience in planning weddings." "Manager Yu, you handled the Health and Culture Festival with thousands of people effortlessly. A wedding is just one event." She shrugged indifferently. "Moreover, Manager, you should know my preferences best. I trust you with this, so rest assured." Her lips curled up with a meaningful smile. "All right." Chapter 15. The next day, I met Jang Wan's boyfriend. He was young and handsome, rumored to be the son of a high-ranking official, holding a master's degree from a prestigious foreign university. He and Jang Wan seemed compatible in every way. "Hello, I'm Chen Qian." He greeted me proactively, with a cheerful personality. "Hello, Mr. Chen. I am Yu Zhou, responsible for planning your and Ms. Jiang's wedding." I smiled politely and replied, "Could you please pour me a glass of water? I don't know why my senior sister was in such a hurry to call someone over." He lazily glanced at Jang Wan beside him. "Sure, please wait a moment." I had just stood up when I heard Jang Wan's impatient voice. "Secretary Zhao, bring in a glass of water." Chen Qian's eyes shifted, and he discreetly glanced at Jang Wan, his eyes filled with a mysterious meaning. "Mr. Chen, if you have any specific requirements for the wedding, please let me know, and I will provide you with detailed alternative plans." Chen Qian pointed at himself. "Me? I don't have any requirements. Whatever works." I was momentarily surprised, silent for a few seconds, and looked at Jang Wan. "Then, does Ms. Jang have any specific requirements?" Jang Wan's eyes deepened, her gaze filled with a hint of a smile as she looked at me. "Let the venue be filled with flowers. As for the wedding music, let's use Jay Cho's Clear Day. What do you think, Manager Yu?" She had once said that our wedding should be filled with flowers. She also mentioned using Clear Day as the background music for the wedding. Now, she hadn't forgotten, only the leading man was no longer me. Suppressing the bitterness in my heart, I replied in a hoarse voice. "That sounds great, I will implement it right away." "Good. As for the rest, Manager Yu, take your time to plan. I have other matters to attend to." She raised a mocking smile, glanced at her wristwatch, and left the office. "Hey! Strange indeed." Chen Qian muttered softly, watching Jang Wan's figure. "Brother, let's go eat. I'm hungry." He turned to look at me, his face full of curiosity. "All right, Mr. Chen, what would you like to eat?" "Well, I know a place." Then, Chen Qian took me to a roadside stall for spicy hot pot. "This. Mr. Chen, are you sure you want to eat this?" If you can't handle it, wait for me. I've been craving this for 2 years. I couldn't help but chuckle. It's not that. I used to come here often too, just didn't expect you to come to a place like this. He happily indulged himself. You don't know, the food abroad is like pig's feed. This spicy hot pot place has been around for many years. My sister used to never let me eat too much. I would often sneak here behind her back. Mr. Chen, are you really not particular about the wedding? I couldn't help but ask. After all, everyone should dream of having an unforgettable wedding. Big brother, ours is a business alliance. Do you not like Jang Wan? I couldn't help but ask again. Why should I like her? Chen Qian answered indifferently. Just thought you two were a good match. I apologize if I overstepped. I smiled awkwardly. Yeah, Jang Wan has everything. Good family background, makes money, good looking, and well educated. Do you like her? Chen Qian suddenly looked at me, a smile in his eyes. Don't joke with me, how could I dare to pursue? But he shook his head and chuckled. Brother, did you two know each other before? My heart suddenly tightened. Why would I know? I guessed it because the look of someone in love cannot be hidden. Chen Qian's eyebrows curved. Just because it seems suitable doesn't mean there is love, and just because there is love doesn't mean it's suitable. Let me tell you a secret, the person I like has a bad temper and loves to hit people. I was shocked for a moment. You see, I'm so good, I should be a match for her, but she's watching me get married to someone else. Chen Qian continued to smile indifferently. Yes, in the adult world. Loving someone, being able to be together, and getting married are three completely different things. Chapter 16. Hey, I suddenly feel bad. Brother, come with me for a drink. Chen Qian tugged at my sleeve and took me to a bar. I know this place the best. Open a bottle of Spades A. Get me 10 singing companions. Chen Qian was familiar with the place, swaying his glass and embracing me to the sound of lively music. Pointing at a row of girls. Brother, which one do you like? Take your pick. I felt a tingling sensation on my scalp, maybe not. He casually pointed, you, and you, accompany me, my good buddies. No need. I never expected kids these days to be so wild. Chen Qian kept drinking one glass after another, but his tolerance was low, and he quickly got drunk. I asked him for a long time where he lived, and he drunkenly said he had no home anymore. Helpless, I had to inform Jang Wan to come and pick him up. Chen Qian pulled and jumped around with the girl next to him, full of excitement. I felt a bit lost, and in the end, a tall and slender girl appeared from nowhere. Her brows and eyes were icy, and her strong aura was intimidating. She frowned as she looked at the drunken Chen Qian, then kicked him to the ground, but she turned politely and smiled at me. I'm his sister. I'll take him home first. She turned to the row of girls. Take care of the guests. They all replied in unison, yes, boss. Me, brother, I'll toast to you. Brother, you're so aloof. Brother, let's have a drink together. I braved myself, feeling a bit overwhelmed. You're quite a player, ordering 10? Jang Wan appeared out of nowhere. Her low and teasing laughter echoed in the ambiguous atmosphere. I felt a bit flustered. Chen. Mr. Chen was taken away by his sister. She wouldn't think that I ordered these 10, right? Jang Wan took a long stride and sat directly on my lap. She hooked her neck around mine, leaning forward to meet my gaze. That's not his sister, it's his ex-girlfriend. Jang Wan gradually approached me, so close that her hot breath brushed against my face. You Joe, how about? We have an affair? She laughed provocatively. I heard you found a replacement for me, someone who doesn't like my type, right? Explain. I avoided her gaze, but she grabbed my face with her hand. The real thing is back. When are you getting a divorce? I gritted my teeth and whispered, I won't leave. She sneered and forcefully took off the ring from my ring finger, throwing it away. I was shocked. Jang Wan, what are you doing? Wearing this useless thing when we're not even married? What? Afraid I'll cling to you because of our past relationship? She laughed mockingly, coldly staring at me. Of course not, Jang Wan. How could you think I would do something so absurd? Yeah, I've done enough absurd things myself. She mocked herself, lowered her head, and kissed my lips. She bit me roughly, releasing her frustrations. My heart ached faintly, and my eyes grew hotter. While she kissed me, she cried. "You Joe, all these years, have you ever thought of me?" No. How could I not? She was in my dreams and thoughts all those years. I often had a dream where, at the age of 30, I met Jang. She was married to a blonde, blue-eyed husband and had a cute mixed-race baby. We unexpectedly bumped into each other at a street corner. Her child asked her, "Mommy, who is this uncle? He keeps staring at you." Jang glanced at me and calmly said, "Seems like he was my mom's classmate, but I can't remember his name." "Classmate, what's your name?" "You Joe, what am I to you deep down in your heart?" Jang Wan's icy gaze locked onto me. "What's wrong with me? Why do you treat me like this? Why did you turn around and fall in love with someone else?" I lowered my head, unable to control my tears any longer, and Jang Wan looked at me with red eyes. "You Joe, why can't you just comfort me?" I looked at the 30-year-old Jang Wan, and a voice echoed beside me, saying, "You Joe, if you want happiness, don't be too clear-headed. Be brave one more time." But another voice said, "You Joe, you have to understand that you and this person have no future. In this lifetime, it's impossible." "I'm sorry, Jang Wan, I don't love you anymore. Look, it's raining outside. A sunny day is just a fleeting moment in my dreams. If you want to buy osmanthus flowers and share some wine, it's never as good as the joy of youth, wandering without a care, beautiful and pure. But I'm already 30 years old now." Chapter 17. In the novel Late Bloomer, it is written, "When you're young, it's not wrong to fall in love with anything, and when you're mature, it's not wrong to give up on anything." She was my first crush when I was young, the only act of bravery in my youth. A fleeting joy, an unresolved feeling. There was no dramatic plot when we were together or when we separated. If we must give a reason, it's because we liked each other but weren't suitable for each other. After college, Jang Wan would often send me messages on QQ. But there was a 12-hour time difference between us. My daytime was her nighttime. She would always say, "You Joe, you're 12 hours ahead of me. You look at the moon first, and 12 hours later, we'll be looking at the same day." That was telling the moon that I liked her. She would often leave messages on my QQ space, saying, "You Joe, today I went to see the Niagara Falls, it was incredibly magnificent." She would say, "You Joe, today I went to the Empire State Building, you can overlook the entire New York City from the top." She would say, "You Joe, when you start earning money, let's go shopping on Fifth Avenue." She would say, "You Joe, today I went on a hot air balloon ride, it was quite romantic, but it felt like something was missing." Even though most of the time, I was either working or studying. The free soup in the cafeteria would run out after 12:30. I had to wait until the end of the month at midnight to turn on my mobile data. I earned 6 yuan per hour working as a part-time hotel attendant, and I would finish work at 9 o'clock every night. We were on opposite sides of the earth, in different worlds, each working hard. I thought we would maintain this state forever. Until one day during a call with Jang Wan, my roommate suddenly said to me, "You Joe, I heard Zhou Yan likes you." And Jang Wan happened to hear that sentence. "You Joe, who is Zhou Yan?" "She's the class monitor in our class." "Is she pretty?" "Well, she's okay." In truth, I hadn't spoken much to Zhou Yan. All I knew was that she and I were both financially disadvantaged students in our class, and I heard she came from a rural area and lost her father at a young age. Sometimes we would run into each other at the cheapest window in the cafeteria or by the free soup. When I had to rush to class due to my part-time job, she would save me a seat. "You Joe, do you like her?" "No. I don't like her." "Do you like me then?" I actually quite like you, no, I really like you. Would you consider pursuing me?" Jang Wan's sudden confession left me distracted the whole day. And the next day, she actually showed up at my school. She said, "Confession should be face-to-face to appear sincere. You Joe, would you pursue me? I'm easy to chase. Just say you like me, and I'll be your girlfriend Tilda." Jang Wan stood in the sunlight, shining brightly. I said, "Jang Wan, I like you, really like you." That was the one and only time in my life that I was brave without hesitation. She happily ran into my arms. At that moment, we held hands and walked through every corner of the campus. On a deserted path, I took the opportunity to kiss her lips. She tried to act calm, but her face blushed all the way to her ears. Chapter 18. Later, we began this cross-cultural love. Sometimes she is childish, and I take a long time to reply to her messages. So she starts spamming me, asking if there's something going on with Li Yan Zhang Yan again. Helplessly, I explain that I'm either working or in class. She says she's angry and wants me to comfort her. But I don't know how to comfort someone. She smirks and says, "Just call me baby, and I'll forgive you." I'm always reserved and boring, and she always teases me until I give in. She easily gets angry, but she's also easy to appease. She understands the difficulties I face and protects my self-esteem. She knows I don't need expensive gifts, so she always sends me affordable things. When she has time, she flies back to see me. We hold hands, embrace, and kiss. But I always hesitate when it comes to taking the final intimate step. Who wouldn't have thoughts about the girl they like? I'm just afraid that I can't give her a future, afraid of holding her back, afraid that she'll get too deeply involved with me. She always gets angry about this and thinks I don't love her enough. That year, she noticed that my shoes were worn out. On my birthday, she gave me a pair of shoes wrapped in a foreign language, a brand I didn't recognize at the time. She said it was a birthday gift and not expensive at all. But I never had the heart to wear them. That year, my grandma suddenly had a bad fall and needed surgery for a broken bone. We were still short of 3,200 yuan. My grandma said she didn't want treatment anymore. When people get old, they should just die. I comforted her, saying that medical treatment is free, so there's no need to worry. My grandma wanted to live to a ripe old age and said she would wait until I graduated. I would bring her to live in a big house, let her eat well, and travel all over the country. She agreed, saying that my family is the best, and she's waiting to enjoy the blessings. That day, I hesitated for a long time before calling Jang Wan. I asked her if she could lend me 3,200 yuan, and I would pay her back when I received my scholarship next month. In that moment, it felt like everything I had held on to for all these years disappeared in an instant. Jang Wan immediately transferred 10,000 yuan to me and asked if it was enough. Stubbornly and foolishly, I only accepted 3,200 yuan. She gently advised me, saying, "You Joe, you are my boyfriend now, and you will be my husband in the future. In the future, you will have to earn money to support me, you know? I will be in charge of the family's finances, and you will have to ask me for your pocket money. Do you understand? Today, consider it a preview. I know you're strong, but I can't bear to see you suffer, you know?" Because of her words, after hanging up the phone, I couldn't help but shed tears. The next day, she suddenly appeared in my world as if from the sky. That time, we went to the hospital together to visit my grandma. She stayed by my side, tightly holding my hand outside the operating room. My grandma's surgery went smoothly, and she looked at Jang Wan and smiled with relief. She said that now that Yu Zhou has someone to take care of him, she can die in peace. Jang Wan said that my grandma can't leave yet, she has to watch us get married and have babies, and she'll take care of our children in the future. My grandma laughed and agreed, saying that she'll live a few more years to witness our wedding and the birth of our baby. But in the end, she didn't get to see it and didn't get to enjoy my blessings. On an ordinary day, she collapsed on the street. Still holding the shrimp she had just bought, the shrimp was still lively, but she had stopped breathing, her heart had stopped. The doctor said it was a heart disease and asked me if I had never noticed any symptoms before. Helplessly, I shook my head. She always kept her illnesses to herself and never told me. Why am I so useless? Why couldn't I notice anything? She raised me by collecting recyclables and supported my education. Why couldn't I wait for just one more year? In one more year, I would have graduated and started earning money. Then I could have taken care of you. Chapter 19. The doctor looked at me and shook his head, saying, "Young man, call your parents and prepare for the funeral. The morgue fee is 300 yuan per day, the funeral car costs 600 yuan per trip, and the urn costs over 1,000 yuan. There are also expenses for burial clothes, cremation, and various funeral costs." Suddenly, I realized that I couldn't even properly handle my grandmother's funeral arrangements. A classmate who used to work with me at a hotel told me about a job that earns money quickly. He said he now works part-time at a club, singing with guests and earning several hundred or even thousands of yuan a day. He said he could introduce me, but it wouldn't just be singing. That day, Jang Wan's mother suddenly contacted me and invited me to her house. I changed into relatively new clothes and put on the pair of shoes I had never been willing to wear. It wasn't like the dramatic scenes in TV dramas, her mother was still so gentle. She showed me around their home. It was the first time I stepped into that villa. I only knew that Jang Wan came from a well-off family, but I didn't know what kind of well-off it was. Her collection of bags occupied an entire wall in the wardrobe, and each one's price could cover my part-time expenses for several years. The prices of those bags could buy several houses for an average family. When she was with me, carrying a bag seemed expensive enough to me. Little did I know, those were intentionally the cheapest ones she bought. Joe, I know you're in a relationship with Jang Wan, but do you know that she frequently flies back to China to see you, and her grades have suffered? Yes. I'm sorry. I was very nervous, just mumbling an apology. You're still students, and your studies should be the priority. Jang Wan will continue her graduate studies after completing her undergraduate degree, and she always worries about you while you're in China. Jang Wan's mother looked at me tenderly. I heard that your father is still serving his sentence, and there's only your grandmother at home. If there's any need for money, you can tell Auntie or Jang Wan. Thank you, but I don't need it. I awkwardly thanked her. She smiled at me and said, You're a smart kid, no wonder Jang Wan has been with you for so many years. My daughter, she has always been kind-hearted since she was little. I remember when she used to bring back stray animals she found on the street, and later we had 2 rooms dedicated to raising the cats and dogs she brought home. Jang Wan's mother glanced at the shoes I was wearing and paused for a moment. These shoes, did Jang Wan give them to you? I forgot how I walked out of Jiang's villa that day, but I felt that the gentler Jiang's mother smiled, the more embarrassed I felt. I checked the price of those shoes. They were a limited edition and sold for 32,000 yuan online. Later, I sold those shoes. I only wore them once. But the buyer said that even wearing them once counted as second-hand, so I urgently sold them for only 12,000 yuan. I used the money from selling the shoes to handle my grandmother's funeral arrangements. Jang Wan's phone rang for a long time, multiple times. When she finally answered, she was very angry. Joe, where have you been these past few days? Do you know how worried I was? Suppressing my emotions that had been building up for many days, I choked and didn't know how to speak. Joe, what's wrong? What happened? Jang Wan, I don't have a home anymore. It's nothing, I just missed you a little, baby. Later, she flew over from the other side of the world. She said, Joe, I missed you too, I wanted to see you. I said, Jang Wan, don't come anymore, focus on your studies. Chapter 20. In the evening, she booked a hotel. Usually, I would quietly accompany her until dawn. That day, after she took a shower, she lay naked in my arms. Joe, is this what you want? The body doesn't lie. I felt uncomfortable and couldn't even look at her. Yes. But she intensified her kisses. I'm willing to give you everything. Don't think too much. We will be better and better. We'll get married, have a cute baby, and you'll earn a lot of money. The hotel bed was soft, like lying on cotton. The emotions I had suppressed for so long turned into desire, and I couldn't resist taking the lead and kissing her. Lost in the confusion of emotions, I called her name over and over again, as if it were etched into my heart. That day, I spent a sleepless night holding the girl I deeply loved. When Jang Wan woke up, she blushed and covered herself with the blanket. I smiled and pulled her out. Why did you wake up so early? She asked shyly, holding me tightly with a flushed face. Joe, when did you start liking me? I raised my hand and smoothed her messy hair. Well, it was probably when you played the piano and sang Clear Day. She looked a little unhappy. So late? I liked you much earlier than that. How much earlier? Humph, I'll tell you on our wedding day. Her fluffy head nuzzled in the crook of my neck. For the wedding, I want to cover the entire hall with flowers. And for the opening music, can we use Clear Day? Okay. Hey, do you prefer a Chinese or Western-style wedding? I think I would look great in a red wedding dress, but I also want to wear a wedding gown. And I want to see you kneeling in front of me, saying I do. Jang Wan kept talking, envisioning our wedding. I remembered every detail clearly, but in the end, the appointment was broken. The next day, my scholarship was mysteriously replaced, and Jang Wan's mother found me. She said Jang was planning to return to China after graduating with a bachelor's degree, but her family wanted her to pursue a postgraduate degree abroad. She said she could give me a sum of money or even send me abroad for further studies, under the condition that I wouldn't hold back her daughter anymore. She still had that gentle demeanor, but I would rather she scolded me fiercely. She asked me one last question. She has been a princess since childhood. If you truly love her, can you bear to let her live a difficult life with you? She was right. I, a poor boy, would only delay her happiness. After struggling for years, could I afford to buy her a handbag? Jang Wan, it seems like I can't marry you after all. When did I start to retreat? Was it the day I sold my shoes? Or perhaps even earlier, when I asked you for money? My pitiful pride had long been extinguished. I saw you off at the airport on a sunny day. I asked you, if we were to break up, would you forget me? You said you would, and that you would find a blonde, blue-eyed foreign guy to make me regret it. I told you that the Ari I gave you was actually a pear, and you said you knew that. You called me a fool, but I already knew. I waved goodbye to you, returning you to the sea of people. On the most ordinary day, I let go of the most important person in my life. Chapter 21. Later, I began to gradually distance myself from her, not answering her calls, not responding to her messages. She started getting angry, and we would argue. Eventually, I said, Jang Wan, maybe we should break up. She didn't understand what she had done wrong, why we should separate. You jerk. I'm angry, couldn't you just comfort me? Why break up? There was a guy in our dormitory who often rejected people, saying, you're not my type. I told Jang Wan, you're not my type. She said, you Joe, you're talking nonsense. We've been together for 2 years, and now you say I'm not your type. She waited downstairs in our dormitory all night. I sat by the window and watched her all night. I had never truly understood the heartache described in books before, but that day I felt it deeply. My heart felt suffocated, unable to catch a breath. With each breath, my heart clenched in pain. In the end, her mother took her away. Life is long, Jang Wan, we probably won't see each other again. She used to enjoy reading romance novels. She said she hated characters who didn't speak up, saying that such people didn't deserve love and deserved to be abused. But how could someone as humble as me speak up? Besides, she was such a good person. Even if the ending was to be abused, I accepted it. Yes, I don't deserve to be loved. Love grows wild like weeds, and recedes like the tide. Gradually, I understood that regret is the norm in life. I live my life well and slowly forget about you, but memories always haunt me like a nightmare. Later, I realized that busyness is the cure for everything. Stay busy, be disciplined and strive for progress. Money is the most enduring remedy for me, so I have to work hard to earn it. In the first few years after graduation, I lived in a shared rental room for 500 yuan a month. In my first job, I worked for 2 years. It was already late in the evening, past 9 o'clock, because I refused a client's drink. The boss said, you Joe, you don't need to come tomorrow. Reluctant to take a taxi, I stood in the cold wind and waited for a bus for half an hour, only to realize that the last bus for the night had already passed. Walking alone on the streets late at night, not knowing where to go, those brightly lit windows, but none belonged to me. The collapse of an adult happens in an instant. You Joe? Later, a voice sounded beside me, and I crouched on the ground and looked up, seeing Zhou Yan standing next to me. It's really you. What happened? She asked me a little awkwardly. Nothing. I missed the last bus. I felt a bit embarrassed. Do you live far away? How about I give you a ride home? She rode an electric scooter and also seemed a bit embarrassed. Just. Don't mind. Me, she said. Today is Christmas, and it's not easy to find a taxi in this area. Later, we exchanged contact information, and she would often greet me. Over time, even someone as careless as me understood her intentions. I apologized and said I didn't want to be in a relationship. She asked if it was because of my previous girlfriend. I didn't respond. She said she had secretly liked me for a long time back then, but unfortunately, she was too insecure to raise her head and confess. If possible, could we try being friends? She was in her second year of graduate school at the time and had a lot of free time. She wasn't good with words, but always expressed her feelings through actions. She would cook delicious meals for me and bring them to the office, and she would stand in line to buy the bubble tea that girls liked. By then, there were already many types of bubble tea, and they were becoming more and more delicious. But I always remembered the person who sat next to me that year, drinking Yakult and singing Clear Day. She said, "You Joe, I really like you." Until one day, after her mother met me, she indirectly asked about my situation. Crying, she begged me to stay away from her daughter. She said my father was a criminal, and if I were with her daughter, it would ruin her. After her daughter graduated, she wanted to enter a formal institution. With my background, no family would accept me. Chapter 21. Later, I finally understood the saying. The essence of life is living alone. Perhaps the loneliness of adults is the bittersweet self-passage. So, over these years, I have lived as a lone ranger. I worked hard to earn money, to enrich myself. I learned how to socialize, how to drink, how to be polite. I became smooth, opportunistic, and adept at navigating social situations. Gradually, I became the person I despised. The calmest moment of each day is when I open the door and Snowball limps towards me. I listen to its purring as I cuddle it, drifting off to sleep. Its soft little paws scratching me, making cute snuffling sounds, always reminding me of someone. "Good boy, I'll buy you the most expensive canned food in a couple of days." I gently squeeze its paw, but unfortunately, Snowball is getting older and its appetite is diminishing. As I stroke its head, I tell it, everything will be all right. Chapter 22. That evening after work, I met Jang Wan's mother. After so many years, it seemed like time had forgotten her. She seemed somewhat surprised to see me. "You Joe, you've changed quite a lot." "You haven't changed much," I replied. "After all these years, you've matured and become excellent," she said with a gentle smile. Jang Wan has also changed a lot, but some things haven't changed. In these years, she has worked hard, studied hard, and everything has been going in a positive direction. But then, I told her that she's almost 30 and should find someone to marry. She said, "Mom, you choose someone you like." Everything was fine, but she changed her mind again. "Jang Wan's rebellion in these years, it's all because of you. I heard that your father recently caused trouble at the company, and Jang Wan gave her 300,000 yuan. You Joe, can you understand a mother's heart?" This time, I didn't feel inferior. I smiled, head held high. "I'm sorry, Auntie, I can't understand. I never had a mother since I was young, so I can't empathize with your emotions. But I have never resented you. When I was 16, you stroked my head and told me to study hard, that things would get better in the future. I am especially grateful for the respect you gave me and the hope you gave me in life. I'm not 18 or 22 anymore, but 30. You don't have to delicately take care of my self-esteem anymore. I understand what you mean, and please rest assured, I won't ruin her." Many years ago, a mother also reminded me. I will repay Jang Wan the money. I still have that amount, and the last person I want to owe is her. This time, I was calm and composed. But Jang Wan's mother's words instantly made me feel like I had fallen into an icy abyss. 10 years ago, she went through childbirth for you once. 10 years later, she's still so obsessed. How long will you continue to entangle her? Chapter 23. I transferred the 300,000 yuan to the company's finances and bought a pair of high heels adorned with delicate diamonds. I entrusted the front desk to deliver them along with my resignation letter to Jang Wan. "Wow, they're so beautiful. Are these crystal shoes?" The young receptionist couldn't help but compliment. I remembered when I was 18, Jang Wan gave me a pair of sneakers. Looking up at me, she said, "You Joe, you should give me a pair of crystal shoes in the future." She was a princess, deserving of all the beauty in the world. Since I didn't have a car, I wanted to take a good walk. When I used to feel sad, I would take to the streets. Watching the traffic flow and the bustling crowds. The neon lights of the city's buildings, feeling small like an ant. As my feet grew tired, my heart felt more at ease. On the mall screen, there were confessions for Valentine's Day. The person I love had already loved me when I was 20. As for who will be her wife at 25 and a mother at 30, I wish her happiness. Hey, Jang Wan, then I wish you happiness. But I don't want your well wishes, and I don't want to wish you happiness either. Jang Wan's voice echoed behind me. You Joe, money can be settled, but what about our bond? I stared at her in a daze, the night breeze gently swaying the hem of her coat. Jang Wan, in the end, I am not worthy of your affection. That year, were you pregnant? I asked her, suppressing the overwhelming emotions. Yes. We did have a child. She clenched her fist tightly, her voice trembling as she spoke. The day after we broke up, I suddenly felt a pain in my stomach. That night, I had a dream. The baby asked me if I didn't want them, that if I didn't want them, they would go find another mother. The doctor said that the child couldn't be saved, that it would be a biochemical miscarriage. She cried uncontrollably, trembling all over. You Joe. I did not want him. I thought that even if we weren't together, I still wanted to give birth to him, raise him, and give him the best of everything. But he's as thrifty as his father, he only spent 247 yuan. For the medical expenses. Jang Wan held me tightly, her eyes red from crying. She suppressed her voice, but her tears wet my shoulder. I know you so well, of course, I understand that you had your reasons. I found out that your grandmother passed away. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for you, Joe. I'm sorry, Jang Wan, I sold those shoes. It's okay, I'm easy to appease. Just call me baby and I'll forgive you. I've been waiting for you on the other side all this time, waiting for you to grow your wings, waiting for you to become mature and brave, and come to me. Jang Wan held me tightly. My phone number never changed, but you never came to find me. I couldn't resist anymore, so I thought, let me go and chase you back. In the winter of 2017, I came back to find you. At that time, there was someone by your side. She brought you meals, quietly waiting for you to finish work. She had eyes only for you. Why didn't I have the courage to question you, whether you like someone else, whether you forgot about me? Look at how useless I am. I'm almost 30, and I saw your live stream activities online. You were wearing a suit, confident and composed, speaking eloquently in front of the camera. That day, I booked a ticket to come back home. Suddenly, I wanted to take another chance. I don't know when it happened, but I couldn't speak anymore. Jang Wan wiped away my tears and quietly watched me. You Joe, if possible, let's make each other's hearts flutter once again. I gathered my overwhelming emotions and remained silent for a long time. Finally, I whispered. Jang Wan, let it go. Don't you like me anymore? I do like you a lot, but I can't ruin you. I gradually understood the meaning of those words. The flutter of an adult's heart comes at a price, weighing the pros and cons. Even if we like each other, if there's no future, we will try to restrain and castrate our own feelings. Those impulsive actions that we know are impossible, in the end, they all become 3 words. Let it go. Jang Wan, I'm returning you to the sea of people once again. Jang Wan, thank you for appearing in my life. I won't hold you back any longer. Chapter 24. Yu Zhou still stood at my doorstep. You found such a wealthy partner, but 300,000 yuan is the minimum to sever our relationship. I won't agree to anything less. I numbly smiled and opened the door. Well, your wishful thinking has come to nothing. We have no relationship anymore. And don't expect to take a single cent from me. My life has been ruined by you. If I could go back in time, I would tell my so-called mother to abort me, not bring me into this world. The pain from my dysfunctional family, sometimes it can never be healed in a lifetime. I let you Joe curse at me outside the door. Snowball, Daddy's back. But Snowball didn't come limping to greet me. On the balcony, I saw it curled up, sound asleep. Only, it didn't wake up again. Did you leave too? Just like the child I never knew about that year. I'll wander alone from now on. I have no home anymore. That night, I took a lot of sleeping pills, but still couldn't fall asleep. Finally, I was too tired, and it seemed like my eyes finally closed. In a daze, I heard someone saying, You Joe, don't sleep, wake up. Let me sing to you, okay? Once upon a time, there was someone who loved you for a long time. The wind blew the distance farther and farther, despite the rain. As she sang, it seemed like she was crying. I felt like I had a dream, and when I woke up, I saw her teary eyes. Jang Wan, I'm sorry. I just couldn't fall asleep. I think I'm sick. He is passionate and indifferent, confident and insecure, sometimes collapsing, sometimes healing himself. If you ask him why, he doesn't even know. He always imagines the worst outcome for everything, so he can accept whatever the final result may be. It's as if he has lost the ability to love and be loved, locking himself inside a fortress, feeling miserable in his clarity. I also really want to save him. You, Joe, I'll rescue you, don't you want that? A discarded child, how dare I hope for any special treatment or exceptions? Be brave, you Joe. We won't get any younger than today. She gently stroked my head and said, You Joe, we will get better and better.